समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Somebody needs to tell American President Donald Trump that it's simply not funny anymore. While India has got somewhat accustomed and even numbed by Trump's daily bizarre claims, the latest swipe at India and Prime Minister Modi was offensive in language and didn't even add up on facts. So guess what's new? When it comes to Donald Trump, it is really a post-truth world. After the attack on Venezuela, Trump is emboldened, more emboldened than ever before. America is now talking about the purchase of Greenland. Economists like Jeffrey Sachs are saying it won't be Greenland, it could be Iran next. Anything could happen when it comes to Trump and America's assertion to be the hegemon of the world again. But when it comes to India and our security concerns, Trump is still rabbiting on about tariffs, about Russian oil, and about conversations and claims in relation to India and the Indian Prime Minister. It has now really, I'd say this as an Indian citizen, crossed all lines where it can possibly be seen as somewhat funny. It is not funny. But look at the world. Look at how Europe is reacting or not reacting. Everybody's reactions are muted. It's a turbulent world and it's being steered and changed by Trump, and next could be China and Russia. In this circumstance, how should and how can India respond? I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo Story. On the program today, even by Trump's own standards, his latest press conference has been bizarre. He spoke about how his wife doesn't approve of his dancing. He mocked Macron. He mocked many world leaders, and he also took a swipe at India and the Indian Prime Minister. He keeps caveating every comment in India by saying how much he thinks Modi is a good man and how Modi really likes him and how he really likes Modi. But this time he basically fabricated and mixed up fact with fiction to make the claim that the Prime Minister had used the word sir to request a meeting with the American president. There's an interesting CNN report that our producers pulled out from a few years ago that actually empirically shows that every time Trump claims a world leader addressed him using the word sir, he's usually exaggerating or lying about something. But the fact is that the comment has been made, it's in poor taste, and it's brought another hit to Indo-US ties. How should India respond at a time when much of the world has been muted, even after America's staggering, breathtaking, and audacious attack on Venezuela? And God knows which country could be next. I want to introduce a panel of experts today as we look at India's options in a relationship that hasn't really got any better. Madhavan Narayanan is with us, senior journalist and columnist. Welcome, Madhavan. Good to see you. Prasad Davuri is with us. He's an entrepreneur who divides his time between the United States and India and has a unique perspective of both countries. Welcome to the show, Prasad. We're also joined by Yashovardhan Azad. Mr. Azad, of course, is a man with many hats. He has been not just a police officer, but a high-ranking intelligence officer, and it is good to have him with us. And, of course, veteran diplomat Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, known for calling a spade and pulling no punches ever. It is a delight to have you back with us. I want to start by playing out Trump's comment. And as I said, there is a benchmark that Trump has set for himself. And even by his own standards, he crossed every red line as far as I'm concerned as an Indian citizen. Take a look.
So that's the good news. But why should they wait 3-4 years to get a plane? They should build them, get them immediately. The F-35s, it takes too long to get them. The Apache helicopter. I mean, I had India coming to me, sir, I've been waiting 5 years. We're changing it. We're changing it. India ordered 68 Apaches. And Prime Minister Modi came to see me. Sir, may I see you, please? Yes, I have a very good relationship with him. He's not that happy with me because They're paying a lot of tariffs now because they're not doing the oil, but they are. They've now reduced it very substantially, as you know, from Russia. We're getting rich because of tariffs, by the way. I hope everyone understands that. They hate to.
Well, one thing Trump's got right is that we're not very happy with him as a country. But the rest of it, the Times of India's Chidanand Rajghatta has debunked that entire set of claims made by Trump, including getting the number of Apache aircraft, the order that was placed wrong, even pointing out that there's nothing actually pending or waiting. Those helicopters were delivered in December. So yet again, Trump has been fast and loose with the facts. I also, before I want to open this up for conversation, want to draw our audience's attention to a fascinating article from CNN. This was published a few years ago, and somebody actually did research to show that every time Trump claimed that a major world leader had addressed them as sir, there was proof that Trump was actually getting his facts wrong, or he was lying about something. And the article is actually called "Sir Alert." This one word is a telltale sign for how Trump actually makes up things. So just put in context there, Ambassador Mukherjee, by Trump's own standards, he's crossed the line. How do you see this? Do we continue to just look the other way, ignore it, say, let him talk in the way that he does? How should we be responding?
In my perspective, Barkha, he has demonstrated that he is basically a showman who makes up his script as he goes along. I presume like a TV anchor. All right. So, sorry about that. I didn't mean you.
I was going to say present company excluded. We may be good at improvising, but we have some thoughts in our head before we speak. At least I do. I won't speak for some of my colleagues, but go ahead.
That particular incident, which was debunked, actually, it was ordered in Trump's first, Trump 1.0, and it was actually delivered, if I am not mistaken, at the fag end of Biden's tenure. The conversation is totally fictitious, but it demonstrates two things. Number one, his deep unease that India has not fallen in line like the mighty and powerful European Union, whose leaders sit outside his office like small school boys or school girls. There's one attractive school girl whom we looked at last time, waiting to be summoned into the great man's presence. It also shows, in my perspective, a certain inferiority complex vis-a-vis India and India's Prime Minister. And that is why he is claiming that our Prime Minister, a popular elected democratic Prime Minister of a country of 1.4 billion people, which had been colonized, which is the world's fourth largest economy, is going to call him sir and say, "Can I see you, sir, for a few minutes?" How should we react? In my perspective, Barkha, we should just ignore it. Because if you react, you're giving importance to what he's saying. We should just ignore it. There's no other way of dealing with it. What should we do? Should we say, "Mr. President, the normal diplomatic protocol when prime ministers and presidents meet is, Your Excellency, how are you? Would it be possible to set up a meeting under mutually convenient circumstances given the urgency of the agenda before us too?" That's diplomatese, Barkha, right? Would he ever remember? No. He would then make a further story saying, "I got a call from the Indian Prime Minister claiming that he didn't call me sir. Actually, he's called me sir so many times that I've forgotten how many times he's called me sir. So we are giving importance and publicity to him." Just ignore him. If he thinks that India is Colombia, or India is Greenland, or India is Iran, or that India is whatever he next wants to annex, we are not. He knows that. And there's one very important factor here, Barkha. He never goes after, beyond a point, after nuclear weapon states. We are also a nuclear weapon state. It is a great mistake to pull the tail too hard of a nuclear weapon state of a country of 1.4 billion people. He knows that. He's actually, Barkha, in my perspective, a very smart guy. He does know which red line to cross and not to cross, and he knows very well we're going to ignore his comment. That's the only way to do it. because there is no comment to give on such a ridiculous comment, right? So we should just ignore it.
In some ways, he reminds me of social media trolls. Their whole purpose is to get a rise out of you. And I learned this the hard way. When I first came to social media, I would argue with everybody who said something bizarre to me, thinking that they were really interested in a counter argument. And then I realized over time that all they want to do is get a rise out of you. And so sometimes contemptuous silence is the best response. Would you say that India should just, this is noise, this is white noise, and we carry on with the more tackling the substantive part of the relationship, which is also, by the way, not smooth right now, Ambassador?
We ignore him. We do not say that it damaged the relationship. The US-India relationship is far too important and multidimensional and important to both sides for it to be affected by even 1 centimeter by a person claiming that our respected Prime Minister has called him sir, which, by the way, he doesn't know, has got a colonial history behind it. We don't call people sir in India. We got over that when we became independent of the British. This sirring is an colonial hangover of people who had, unfortunately, colonial education like I've had, post-colonial education, right?
Yes.
Sir and madam is a very British thing. We don't have it in our vocabulary anymore. We say G, Namaskar G. That's what we say. So the point here is our relationship is strong. Our relationship is multidimensional. We are on the verge of the FTA. He can keep on talking as bizarrely as he wants. It makes no difference at all. We are carrying on at the lower levels at full range. We are getting a lot of stuff that we wanted. We have to just develop. It is very difficult for Indians, Barkha. All countries with a colonial history have this problem of a thin skin when dealing with white people. I have it myself. That's a fact. We have to learn to develop a thick post-colonial skin, ignore his comments and his jibes, which, as you rightly pointed out, like these trolls, are just intended to provoke us. And just carry on. That's it.
You've set the framework for our conversation. Let me get the others to respond. Yashovardhan, Azad, do you agree? Or do you believe that there is a time in the life of a nation where you say enough? That's the question. And I agree with Ambassador Mukherjee. I think this is peculiar to nations that have been colonized. There is a deeply felt, almost sort of instinctive, intuitive revulsion at the idea of somebody in the West telling you how you should be, or even conceiving that any Indian Prime Minister would go sirring an American president beyond the norms of protocol, where everybody says sir and ma'am or your excellency or ambassador or whatever protocol demands. That's not how Trump presented it. And it is galling. But I think what Ambassador Mukherjee is saying, chhod do, it's not worth our time. Do you agree with that?
Well, Barkha, for me, really, it's not really that important. I consider, Trump refreshingly sometimes departing from the, heavy protocols and, requirements of the diplomacy. And he talks nonsense. He makes people laugh. He's a great humorist. And, nothing wrong in calling somebody sir or not calling sir. It's not a big deal for me at all. Now, the most important thing is, yes, when Trump mentions and says that, yes, India asked me to mediate in war with Pakistan, I agree that's a serious matter and India must protest. If Trump says that, well, India said, sorry, sir, we will buy less oil now, yes, I will say no, that's not correct. But on issues like these, who calls sir and who doesn't?
But he jumbles it all up, right, Yasho? The point is he jumbles it, he adds it all up in the same stream of consciousness.
But that's very well aware. I mean, everyone knows about it that he talks like this. He also says that the other, French Prime Minister told me this and Canadian told me this. And I said, no, I'll do this. So, I don't take him seriously at all on these particular issues. And let me tell you one thing, no matter, we should be realists also. We need America a hell of a lot. And that's why we keep quiet to all his nonsense which he talks. All our best guys, the best bureaucrats and the best ministers, their sons and everyone, they have a stake in America. Hardly any Americans come and stay here. So, we got to take the shit what he gives us also. And otherwise, also, we should, just relax, take it easy. If we are a big nation, we are fourth largest. Of course, not talking about per capita and other real things. But it's all right. We are a big nation. Why the hell should we care what he says and what he doesn't do? For example, we have to understand that our intake of crude was what? About 1 to 2% from Russia. And what happened during the war? 35% because we diverted, because we were saving money. And what happened when Trump said something? It's down to 25%, 20%. So, there are certain things we have to accept. The tariffs were high. So what have we done? We have reduced in terms of apparel and other issues, though we have stayed resilient, say, in IT and other. So certain things we should take at a face value, not really create a lot of issues over it. We still need America in Quad. We still need America in sharing intelligence. We have our strategic interests. But by and large, yes, there is an adverse relationship which is in their favor. So let him get away talking rubbish. It really doesn't matter.
Okay, that's a very sage sort of way of looking at it. And you and Ambassador Mukherjee have that in common. Let's see if our hot-headed younger men also feel like that. Prasad, you're a green card holder. You spend much of the year in the US. You divide your time between both countries. So you have a kind of maybe an altered perspective. I'm not sure if you had better expectations from Trump and you feel disappointed or you don't. As somebody who is a non-resident Indian for most of the year, how do you look at what's happening?
Thank you, Barkha, for inviting me on the show. The way I look at it is I have watched this man perform for 33 years now. So what he did is expected. In fact, if he didn't do this, I would be surprised, saying he's not fine. Something is wrong with him. This is his usual way of functioning. And it goes back to a very important thing that we are missing here. He likes to use, go back to the word sir, for example. Even Zelensky, who's got his back against the wall and his front against the wall, the guy is in deep trouble. And yet he had the guts to come to the White House and argue with the President of the United States and get bounced out. He didn't use the word sir. In fact, that's what upset them, saying the guy was not thankful enough. So the only person I remember who publicly uses a world leader or a leader of country who uses the word sir to address Trump publicly is our own next door neighbor, Nawaz Sharif's brother. I can't remember the fellow's name.
Shehbaz
Sharif. Exactly. He's the only guy who publicly has called Mr. Trump as sir. Otherwise, even somebody like a Zelensky got bounced out of the White House, but he did not use that word. So therefore, that is what it is. For whatever it is worth, that's what I have to say about the word sir. And I think he uses it metaphorically. He uses it to paraphrase it jokingly, but also there is a deep pain when he uses that word to address a particular person. The pain is that even somebody like a country like Brazil, for example, their tariffs are only 40%, whereas we are at 50%, and yet there is no sir, there is no please, there is no can you please do this officially from the Prime Minister. If the bureaucrats, if the agents, the lobbying firms, they're all doing their job. If they have to ask the American counterparts saying, sir, could you please take a look at the tariffs and see if you can reduce that? It's a little bit unfair and this and that. That's part of their job. That's what they are being hired to do. But so that's not the point. The fact is he's expecting the Prime Minister to directly call on his personal cell phone and say, sir, can you please take a look at the tariffs? I'm sure, I'm even willing to bet my $1 for this. I am pretty sure if Modi actually did that, the next morning he would remove the 25% tariffs. That is how his ego is. And fundamentals of psychology, you have adult ego, you have child ego, and as we grow, we move from child to adult. For some people, biology is not being kind.
So in a way, what you're saying is that that the fact that the standoff between India and the US continues actually is proof that we haven't done the sucking up that Trump would expect. And we've seen much of the world actually do it. I can never forget how Keir Starmer was humiliated by Trump at the signing of the Gaza Pact. He stepped forward to speak to the podium and he was just rapped on his knuckles, sent away, and Shehbaz Sharif was called to the mic instead. Okay, Madhavan, I know you have a slightly different take. On X, you said today that we should show a spine, we should take this on. You've heard three people, an eminent diplomat, an eminent intelligence bureau officer, and Prasad, who actually lives in America, say this is who he is. Why would you want to wrestle on this point? What do you say, Madhavan?
Let me first, good to see Prasad bringing in Sigmund Freud into the world of diplomacy. I think it's much needed because that is what Trump is all about. But having said that, let me take some important points where I'd be at variance with Ambassador Mukherjee. The point is that nations cannot behave purely on Freudian calculations, although they matter. I think former central bank governor Y.V. Reddy used to tell me, where I stand depends on where I sit. So, we are constrained by the fact that trade talks are in progress. So we can't be too indiscreet. Discretion is the better part of diplomacy, but discretion doesn't mean silence. That is where I disagree with those who say Trump should be completely ignored. So we have to also make sure that the trade talks do not end in a manner where India is seen as a loser, because this silence is worth the price, and the price is a good deal in the trade FTA. So I'll be constantly watching, calibrating, because if the Russian oil part of the story is any indication, that means that we are keeping quiet and we are also yielding ground. So I would rather be doing a hard diplomacy. Let's recall the fact that Foreign Minister Jaishankar actually flew down for the SCO meeting to send a signal to the US. So it's not as if we haven't shown a spine at all.
Yeah.
But that was a subtle signal to the State Department. But I also have in mind not just Trump's psychology or background, it's also there is something called the national security strategy they have come out with, which is not in line with the past diplomacy of the State Department. So I would say State Department is working in tandem with Trump, or doing things in such a way that Republicans are openly talking about the Monroe Doctrine, especially after the Venezuela crisis. So this is not the old US. So I would like, as an Indian, to recall Indira Gandhi saying buzz off to Richard Nixon. I would like to recall the days of Krishna Menon standing up to British imperialist hangover. So there is a lot in our history when we.
So what would you want at this point?
Yeah. So what I would like is what I call track 2 response to a track 1 insult. So people like Shashi Tharoor, who could be brought in for things like vaccine diplomacy or outreach, should be, the parliamentary committee exists, senior media people exist. There are kinds of atmospheric pressures, diplomacy exists to tell Trump that if we are silent, then it is for a reason, and you had better yield ground and then get down to backroom, diplomacy. I know we are heading for a very interesting world where there is even speculation about G2, where China and US will get together.
Yeah.
So we have to keep the options open. I would expect India to engage actively with the European Union, because even NATO is under threat. Greenland is under threat.
Well, I will say, sorry to interrupt there, that I think the Europeans have shown in this Darwinian world their irrelevance. NATO has been shown up to be actually an absolutely limited military alliance. That's the hard fact, Madhavan. Tomorrow, if America actually went in, they've said today they want to purchase Greenland, not invade it. But if actually Trump went ahead and did this, how could he be stopped? And who would stop him is a question for us to consider.
Let me. This is where I feel that, when things change, everything changes. So let me use the example of the fact that we are a nuclear power. Ambassador Mukherjee mentioned that. So if we are a nuclear power, then we should show some spine, engage with Europe to, it's not, unity always makes for strength, and diplomatic unity, behind the scenes talks, keeping a plan B ready. These are all things we should be doing.
Okay.
It doesn't mean
fair.
That we should
it's
talk.
A fair question. It's a fair question.
People like Shashi Tharoor, whose shoulders have been used to file other bullets, can be invoked for this. His articulate.
Okay, so So talking about reacting, Jaishankar, Foreign Minister Jaishankar, in a different setting, not to this particular comment, has called out what he calls free advice offered by the West. He is, of course, referencing blatant hypocrisy. You know, Operation Sindoor happens and India is asked to restrain ourselves. And the Americans go into Venezuela and capture a president and present him in a New York court. And Trump is openly saying that there are other countries on the list where that might happen next. So Jaishankar, while expressing concern, and India's response has been very cautious on Venezuela, did make a general point about hypocrisy and free advice. Let's take a look.
In this day and age, countries are more, I don't want to say they become more selfish, but they will do things only if it is of direct benefit to them. They will offer you free advice. If something happens, they'll say, no, please don't do that. It worries us if there is tension. Sometimes you hear people saying, like it happened during Operation Sindoor. Now, if you ask them, saying, oh, really, you're worried? Why don't you look at your own region and ask yourself, what are the levels of violence there? How much risks have you taken? How much worry the rest of us have about what you are doing? But, that's the nature of the world. People, what they say is not what they do. And we have to accept it in that spirit as well.
Ambassador Mukherjee, frankly, in the context of Venezuela, that's a pretty sharp statement. The written statement from the MEA was very cautious. But Jaishankar is effectively saying, you were asking us to restrain ourselves in Operation Sindoor. You're giving free advice. Look at your parts of the world. Look at the risks you're taking. Look at the risk you're putting the rest of the world to. And Madhavan, I think this is the sort of standing up I think you would expect to the calling out of a hypocrisy. But I want you to respond to Madhavan saying being discreet doesn't mean being silent. And being silent should not be mistaken for being a supplicant nation. After all, we have never joined. We will never be an ally of the United States or any other country because we believe in strategic autonomy. It is hardwired into the diplomatic core of, which you and others have so valiantly represented the country on. I want you to respond to Madhavan's criticism that after some point, silence is being looked at as weakness.
Well, he is entitled to his perspective and I respect him for it. My perspective as a diplomat of 40 years experience is that there are occasions when you demean the nation by responding. And in my perspective, India will demean itself by responding to such a demeaning remark. Who says that we are not doing track 2 diplomacy? The whole part of track 2 diplomacy, as I'm sure Mr. Madhavan knows better than me, is that it's always conducted in complete privacy and away from the media, away from the public. Track 2 has been going on, it's a given. And in the track 2, we have proven pro-India people on the other side. That's what I'm trying to say, that this White House is not as united as it looks. There are several people there who strongly believe that India should be brought right back into the center and that we represent the fulcrum of US strategic interests in this part of the world. That's the way it's been ever since we decided to go nuclear and the Americans decided to come on board. That's the way it's going to remain because we are a nuclear weapon state. In this particular case, silence is not interpreted by anyone as weakness. Silence is interpreted as wisdom, the wisdom of coming from the land of Chanakya. You do not respond to something which needs no response. You ignore because when you respond, you are making a bad situation worse. There are certain imperatives for India. One is the FTA. The other is access to vital technology, which we are going to get. The third is a major defense deal that is being discussed. There is no damage to the India-US relationship except for Trump's semantics and theatrics. Nothing else. You haven't seen professional diplomats jumping up and down on Trump's side making such outlandish remarks. Not at all. So the point here is that I firmly believe that we should while maintaining our dignity. Steer, as Tagore said, Ekla chalo re, steer our route. It was the correct route, Tagore said. Jodi to ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে, তাহলে একলা চলো রে. If at the moment nobody is listening to you, it makes no difference. If you're on the right route, you continue down the lonely path of truth because ultimately you will get what you want. And that is what I would advocate. I certainly would not advocate a tutu meme at the highest level because somebody who thinks, who has an inferiority complex about our country, although he is the US president, is claiming that our prime minister, a highly respected prime minister, is calling him sir, not even understanding the whole nature of the impact of British imperialism and colonialism on India and
Yeah.
what the word sir means to all Indians who are patriotic and who have studied their history. So I
Okay.
stand by that, Barkha.
Okay, Madhavan, very brief interjection. I want to bring Yasho and Prasad actually on also the whole conversation around the details we have from the lobbying firms and the filings that they have filed. But you had a brief response there.
Yeah,
Madhavan.
two very brief points. One is that
I think we just lost Madhavan. There, Madhavan, can you hear me? Okay, I'm sure Madhavan will reconnect possibly, but I want to move on, Yasho Azad, beyond this statement of Trump to what's actually happening. Now, the Americans go on saying that India has cut back on the import of Russian oil. And we had a statement from Reliance saying that they were expecting no crude oil from Russia in January, which de facto could make a big difference to the number, to the volume of Russian oil imported. We've seen that statement from Reliance in the last 48 hours. What do you make of the risks of what Trump has done in Venezuela, which many believe could be followed with China going for Taiwan, in which the America-China deal will be Trump looking the other way? You know, there are lots of balls up in the air, and how much can we afford right now to alienate Putin and Russia? I can't hear Mr. Azad. Can we unmute him?
Yeah. I've already tweeted on this account that given the action, snatch and grab operation which America has done in Venezuela, it's quite likely that it's now free for all for everyone. So Russia can carry on with the, with Zelensky as long as it wants without any problem. The Israelis can keep bombing Gaza. And China, yes, had, in fact, only a few days ago, a statement was made to this regard and may take over Taiwan also, with the Yankees looking the other way, though, of course, their pronouncements are different and they are committed because Taiwan is a very, very strong ally. I would also say that given the nature of the operation which the Americans have done, it's quite likely that it may get down or get bogged down like Iraq, because, having a snatch and grab operation like that is fine as far as the operative part is concerned. But running a country is very, very difficult. The various factions, the kind of money they are putting in there, the kind of, the social media, all orchestrated by the CIA, is quite different from the actual reality which is happening there. But in terms of the Indo-US deal, I think there is a lot to be, expected now. And the Russian oil is going to make quite a huge difference. Now, we have been trying to have better relations. Yes, FTA, Bhaswati talked about. That's a very important thing with the Europeans. But I think there should be a kind of a broad diversification of our exports if we can. Broad diversification, also, foreign investment from the European Union and other countries. That is the only way out, because Americans today or tomorrow, despite the strategic alliance which we have, are often turning on to us by way of tariffs or immigration, visas, etc., etc. And that will always remain a kind of a problem between Indo-US relations.
But, Yasho, let me bring in Prasad and Madhavan on this, because the fact is that a number of Indians right now, despite relatives and families in America, despite ourselves having, I went to school and grad school in New York. Prasad, there is some skepticism about the US being a fair weather partner, and there is a lot of talk about Russia having been a more steady partner. And so, therefore, it's a very precarious time, because at one level, Trump and Lindsey Graham and others keep claiming that India has cut back on Russian oil. But at another level, there are a number of people who believe that you cannot actually alienate Russia at this point. And before the diplomats and Mr. Azad come in, I know you've been looking at the oil sort of game for a while. What Trump has done in Venezuela is also being called petro-imperialism. He's not even denying that it's all about oil. How do you see it?
Well, Barkha, I think let's just focus on Venezuela for a moment. When Trump took this action, he claimed that the oil companies in the US are all going to move in and start pumping crude oil out of Venezuela. Today, officially, the oil executives have privately, two sources in the media, revealed that they were as shocked at the operation as everyone else. They didn't even know such a thing was happening. And
well, a military operation would have to be secret. It would have to be secret.
Well, it has to be secret. But there was the second part of the comment was that our oil companies will now go and start pumping crude oil as a result of this operation. That is what they were surprised. They said, we were never informed that we could go to Venezuela, number one. Number two, even if we were asked to go, we are not going to go to Venezuela because we have already written off $100 billion in bad debts because they went into Venezuela 25, 30 years back. And then when Hugo Chavez came into power, he kicked everybody out, and there were huge losses. So that's why the Venezuela oil exploration is completely off for all the US oil companies. So therefore, if the administration thinks that that is what the reason for Venezuelan attack was, then I think they're very wrong. I think you mentioned about petrodollar. I think a lot of it has to do with that. The relevance of the reserve currency, the dollar as a reserve currency, is slowly withering away. Even countries, traditional allies like Saudi Arabia, are beginning to do a want trade with China for the oil. So therefore, to bring that back, to bring the relevance of petrodollar, the foreign policy of the United States is focused on controlling oil, essential rare earths, which they need. So it's more of a China hedge that the US is doing, because China is in Venezuela, whereas and they're taking a lot of oil from Venezuela as well as from Russia. So to stop that is probably the primary reason why the US has gone in.
Okay, that's an interesting counterfactual to the assumption that Trump is seeing a G2 world or a G3 world, where the three powers that are going to decide the fate of this world now are China, America, and to some lesser extent, Russia. I want Madhavan to respond. Do you have a sentence there?
Yeah, with Trump, specifically with Trump, let us make sure we understand that if he argues with you and he has a fight with you, like he did in the White House with Zelensky, don't think that's the end of the relationship, because he'll turn around and next month he invited Zelensky back to the White House and they shook hands.
Yeah.
So
that's fair. That's fair.
So this whole G2 thing, he could fight with China, but also be playing a G2 game with them.
Absolutely. Madhavan, we lost you when you were wanting to make an interjection, but I'm sure you've added on some points you want to make. So go ahead.
I think what I am concerned about, Barkha, is not Trump alone. I am concerned about whether the State Department as an institution is backing Trump, because especially after the national security strategy and the invasion of Venezuela, we need to be having a plan B to understand whether there is a new normal that we have to deal with. Otherwise, I can even simply wait till the congressional elections in later this year and see Trump's Republican cloud eroded, and there'll be a cloud. But we need to be, as a civilization, as a country, prepared for everything. The eventuality, we can't assume that the problem will go away. So I think this is where we have to be careful. We need to have a plan B while keeping reticence. And what I mentioned earlier, just to, since I went off the air, I just want a backbenchers in parliament speaking for the country. I want Shashi Tharoor speaking for the country. I know that the foreign minister and prime minister have to be discreet. We've got a system to communicate. Somebody can give an interview to Fareed Zakaria and say all the galis you want. This is the kind of stuff I am looking at.
Yeah.
You know, there is a way of doing things. Sending messages
I
across.
hear you.
So send
I hear you. I think what you're saying is that you don't have to have government to government rebuttals. It can simply be a way to get your narrative out, and that narrative should go out through other forms. Fair enough. I've got to take a closing comment. Yasho, if you, before I give Ambassador Mukherjee the floor, if you just want to come in on something we haven't spoken about in parallel, you have Bangladesh and Pakistan. So here's how many. I was saying yesterday, these are how many balls are up in the air for India. You have a volatile Trump, and we're waiting to see what happens with the trade deal. You have Trump having been successfully flattered by Pakistan. You have Pakistan being a vassal state of China. You have Pakistan re-establishing now military to military contact with Bangladesh. You have the Air Force chief direct talks with the two air chiefs of the country. You have China invested in Bangladesh, in Bhutan, in Myanmar, in Nepal, in Sri Lanka, obviously patronizing Pakistan. And you have Trump both taking on China and trying to cut a deal with China. I don't think we have ever been at such a critically turbulent, volatile time as we stand today. So just thoughts on that before I give the closing word to Ambassador Mukherjee.
I agree. I mean, today the world order has changed so drastically that there is need to, shift our gears. And a very important point which Mr. Madhav has raised is about the national security strategy, which has been, released by the Americans during Trump's time. And it's a great shift which we must look at. Unfortunately, in our country, we don't have any kind of these strategies coming out in the papers. I mean, the raw chief does not come out with our, external security threat dimension. The intelligence bureau does not come, out with its internal security dimension. Today, the threat has magnified, whether now with a new quarter coming from Bangladesh. And it's very, very important that we think on these lines and we come out. Days back, Indira Gandhi, and Mr. Madhav is absolutely right. What a leader she was. She rubbed the nose of Nixon to the ground. Maybe the world politics is different. The international arena is different. So we can't do that. But yes, the idea of giving an interview to somebody like Fareed Zakaria would be a great idea. And though, in fact, commentators around the world have criticized Trump to no end, but I can tell you, in the end, Trump is a passing phase in American politics. Yes, he'll be around for 2 years. And many of the bureaucrats and many of the foreign policy diplomats like Bhaswati in America who are against him, I think Indian US relations will come back to an even keel.
Okay. So, Master Mukherjee, the last word to you. Is it just about holding your nose through these next 2 years, keeping your nerve, developing the thick skin that you talk about, to not get distracted by semantics and theatrics and rhetoric? There is the question of the deal. There is the question of the trade deal, which clearly has not yet seen the dotted line. And in that time, can we afford how much can we afford at this point politically to cut back on Russian oil? I mean, what would be your counsel?
Well, we're doing what we can on Russian oil, and that has helped. And the deal will come through. We have an asymmetrical military balance with the Chinese, and we have elections coming up in Bangladesh, where we have clearly shifted gears with regard to the BNP, because we sent our foreign minister for the funeral. So we are shifting gears. As somebody had pointed out, PM went to the SCO summit. He's driven in with Putin in his own car, etc. These are all subtle signals. I don't think we should go beyond that at the moment until we secure what we require for our national security needs from the Americans, because we need a lot of stuff from the Americans, which we are going to get. And if in that process we need to be diplomatic and silent for as long as it takes, that's not a problem. We are a long culture and civilization, and Trump is only here for another 2.5 years. Midterms will be at the end of this year, I think, Mr. Madhavan said, if I got him correctly. So What is 1 year in a 1,500-year-old civilization? What difference does it make? He is in pretty poor shape. He's not in good health. His comments sometimes makes one feel. I think it was Yasho who said or whatever that you go from infancy to adulthood to infancy. I don't want to go any further than that. But I would like to say something about the Venezuelan oil, which is that I have been told by my colleagues, foreign diplomats, that yes, the American oil companies have actually told Trump's White House that they have no intention of going into Venezuela. A, because there are gangs there looking to murder Americans. It's a very, very tricky situation to be an American and to be in Venezuela right now. And B, that they would need to invest several $billions to repair the infrastructure, which is in very bad shape, and to extract the oil, which is very thick oil, which needs a special refinery. Actually, we have the expertise to do that, and we have Indian presence in Venezuela. We will actually benefit from Mr. Trump plucking the Venezuelan president. We will get some Venezuelan oil, which will hopefully help us to make up for lack of Russian oil. But the point is, no American oil company, apart from the one which is there, there's only one there, no one wants to go into Venezuela. So when he's talking about extracting Venezuela's gold and copper and etc., he needs the people, American people with him, the oil companies with him, and he needs calm in Venezuela. Let there be, Barkha, one American lynched in Venezuela. You will see how his body language changes. Because if there's one weakness which the Americans have, which the Russians don't have, which we don't have, is the Americans hate body bags coming home. They hate it. Even one body bag puts them off. All it needs is one body bag. I'm sorry to conclude on such a bloody note, but he was really lucky that there was no American casualty. There were 80 casualties, of which I'm told 35 were Cuban bodyguards. But
no, I think that's a really important point. Americans have never had the appetite for their coffins coming home. We've seen that in Afghanistan, we've seen that in Iraq, and I think that's the military operation, as military operations go, may have been successful for America, but what happens next is extremely dangerous, and it could end as dismally and as chaotically as Afghanistan and Iraq did. Just before we end, we polled our viewers to ask, this is public sentiment, this is just raw public sentiment among our audience. Trump's tariffs, oil pressure, public posturing and more, has India had enough? 36% of our viewers say that India should push back firmly. 29% say strategic patience is wiser, Master Mukherjee. India has limited room to maneuver, Yasho, the reality check, 15%. And 21% recognize this to be Trump's political theater. So a fairly granular response there. And it also tells you that people understand this in layers. People understand it quite well. People are not having some, sort of very simplistic response to this. People are generally aware and have learned to understand Trump, and when needed, also ignore him. Thank you very much, Prasad Duvuri, Madhavan, Narayanan, Yashovardhan, and Ambassador Mukherjee. Always a pleasure. And to our audience, thank you, and see you tomorrow.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.